As the nights start to get colder and the leaves start to change, October caddis, the last truly big aquatic insect of the year, start to appear on steeper freestone rivers. While their numbers are sparse, the size of these bugs make them a great option to find fish looking for the last big meal before winter sets in. This is the Equinox caddis. These flies are big, so I'm using a Daiichi 1560 1X long hook. For thread, I'm using Vivus 6/0 in orange. Tie in a long strip of foam and tape wraps all the way back to the barb. Fold the piece of foam forward and take some loose wraps up to just behind the hook eye. Bring your thread rearward and bind down the foam to the hook shank. Bring your thread to behind where the foam is and use that hot thread to make a nice high-vis butt on this fly. Take your wraps forward and tie in a dubbing loop. You can then bring your thread forward to keep it out of your way. Using some dubbing wax in this loop really helps hold everything together. For dubbing on this fly, I'm using Sea-By Fine Flash in burnt orange. It's a lot like ice dub, but it tends to be a little bit finer, as the name would suggest, and I've really enjoyed using this material. As you assemble your dubbing loop, you can be pretty generous with the amount of dubbing you're using, and you'll see why in a little bit. Spin up your dubbing loop. I'm using the OPST dubbing loop spinner. I've used a lot of these dubbing loop spinners, and this one I really just think is the best. No free ads, but I really like this tool. Using a toothbrush or a dubbing brush or something that you have that's got some tension on it, just go to town on that dubbing loop. You can be pretty aggressive. We've used a lot of material, and we're still going to cut off some more later. Well, you can do this before you put your dubbing loop together. I find that it typically is a little bit easier to keep this gray ostrich curl, which I've tied into the back, out of the loop if you tie it in after. Take spiraling wraps forward with your dubbing loop, pulling the dubbing back on each wrap. It's important to not wrap too tightly to keep the dubbing having this really nice buggy and bushy texture. Take wraps with your dubbing loop up to about a quarter of the ways back on the hook shank, then tie off your dubbing loop with your thread. Like I said, we've used a generous amount of dubbing for a reason. Use your brush or fingers to separate the fibers, then trim it up. As you can see, this is creating a really nice shaggy body for this fly. Grab the ostrich and take spiraling wraps forward just as you would a rib of wire or tinsel. While you can use hackle pliers, I usually like to use my fingers when palmering ostrich. It's just usually a little bit easier to not break your ostrich curl this way. For the underwing, take 8 or so strands of root beer colored crystal flash, tie them in, and then fold them back. Secure them with the tying thread, and again, you can be pretty generous with this flash, and a lot of this is going to get cut and adjusted. For the wing of this fly, I'm going to use smoke-colored widow's web to match the color of the wings on the October caddis. Once again, you can be pretty generous with the amount of material. Tie it in, fold it back, and secure it with a couple of wraps. As you can see, we have a really big wing here, and we're going to trim it down into a low, flatter shape so that the profile mimics that of a natural October caddis. Because we've been generous with the amount of material, it's very dense, and this fly will still float and skitter well even when the wing's been trimmed down. Take the strip of foam protruding off the front of the hook and fold it back, leaving a foam head that extends just beyond the hook eye. Taking care not to spin the foam, bind it down with some firm wraps and snip off the excess foam at the rear. Take one strand of grizzly hackle, tie it in on this thread body that you've built. You can also use your thread to kind of neaten up that back foam. Make a small dubbing noodle. In this case I'm using the fine flash, but you could totally use a gray or black for the thorax of this fly. With your hackle pliers, start palmering forward. You want to make these wraps pretty tight and bring it up to just behind our foam bullet head. Once you can't make any more wraps, and before you get to the strip stem, tie in your hackle feather. Tying in before you get to the strip stem is important because a couple of these hackle fibers, as you can see, are kind of splaying forward on the underside of the fly. Just adds to the buggy appearance, and it's going to help that fly look very much alive as it skitters across the water. For leg material, tie in a loop of barred sexy floss. I think this is called amber and black, but whatever color you want to use is just fine. Snip your loop and adjust the legs so that they're sitting where you want them. Secure with a couple more firm wraps. At this point you can trim your legs and any other materials that are a little bit longer than they need to be up, and you can take a whip finish or a half hitch, finish up this fly, add a little of whatever your preferred finishing material is, head cement, UV clear cure. I like to trim the underside of the hackle down just a little ways, but totally not flush. And that's it, the Equinox Caddis. If you see October Caddis flying around in your local waters, tie one of these on, skitter it as much as you want, and might just find one last big trout on a big drive before the winter sets in.